Good evening. I'd like to call the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll's June 12th, 2023 regular meeting of council to order at 6 p.m. I'll now turn it over to our CAO, Michael Graves, for a quick announcement, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to take this time to introduce our new Director of Development Infrastructure, Matt Sweetland, who's with us today. Matt brings a wealth of experience with him. He's worked for other municipalities and the private sector where he mostly served municipalities. He has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Lakehead University and an advanced diploma in civil engineering technology from Fanshawe College and an executive diploma in municipal management. We believe Matt will be an indispensable part of our new Town of Ingersoll team.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Shannon, please.
Disclosure of pecuniary interest for the delegation presentations at 7 o'clock, then number 15. The primary care in communities, Stephanie Nevins, Ingersoll Nurse Practitioner-led clinic. I'm currently employed with the clinic.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any further disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we were supposed to have a delegation presentation. That has been deferred to the July 10th regular meeting. So we'll now go on to the consent agenda. And Deputy Mayor Wilson, I believe you have a motion for adoption.
I do, and I just have a quick question about one of the staff reports before we do that. In regards to the Treasury report, just looking at the property taxes outstanding year to date, right now it's just over $605,000. So I'm just curious if this is normal, if there's any indication of challenges to come, kind of given the economy, and if there's, well, I'll just leave it at that, and I have a follow-up, I guess, based on that information.
Yes, thank you for the question. So this is normal. So typically our taxes outstanding run between $500,000 to $700,000 at the end of the year. It all depends on some accounts, like big, like commercial, industrial properties. They can have large credits on their accounts that helps to bring the overall balances down. But this is normal, and usually what we see is the balances grow during the year because some property owners, they tend to let them go into arrears, but then at the end of the year, a lot of property owners will come in and pay the balances so they don't go into the arrears and don't get registered. So we do send, and during the year we try to send statements. So we do it at least twice a month to all the accounts outstanding. So that I don't foresee any challenges. So it looks normal. Looks like a normal year, yes. And we also offer programs. So it's just for information. We have a financial hardship program that's offered by the town and the county. So it's offered for eligible ratepayers. So most likely people with fixed income, like seniors on fixed income. So we allow for deferred taxes, so the taxes will accumulate. There will be no interest or penalties charged, but eventually they will have to be paid off. So at this, at the sale of the house, or when people have the opportunity to pay for the taxes. So I'm just, I just want this information to be out in the public. So thank you.
Thank you. My follow-up question was going to be about programs, so you answered that. Thank you very much. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bowman that the items contained in the June 12, 2023 consent agenda be adopted as presented.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Bowman, you have a motion for the minutes from the regular meeting of May, please.
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the minutes for the May 8, 2023 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now go into special reports. The first C-018-23 And I'll turn this over to our CAO, Michael Grace, please.
Thank you, and I see our clerk is joining us via Zoom. She can answer more questions, as this is mostly her report. But I just did want to say the strategic plan specifically lists launching a town email newsletter, and that is covered in this report. But this report also covers a variety of additional options for communications. And that's based on discussions we've had with council about wanting to look at options. Really, this comes down to a level of service discussion. Staff have tried to provide a wide range of options and some accounting for the resources needed to provide those options. But really, it's for council to decide what level of service they may want. And I don't know if Danielle has anything to add.
I don't, Michael, you've summarized that really well, so I'm happy to answer any questions. It is a lengthy report. However, the communications and engagement function is very broad, affects all departments, so wanted to provide council with a sufficient amount of information to have an engaging discussion on the topic.
Excellent, thank you. Are there questions from staff regarding the report? Councillor Hutson, please.
Thank you. Very comprehensive report, Danielle, thank you. So is this report basically going to consider both the email, the newsletter, as well as the social media aspects? Kind of like the magazine distribution that we had talked about? Because I just want to make sure it's the same as what you consider the newsletter.
Yeah, so this report
Sure.
is background information. Really, council is going to have a very wholesome discussion on what level of service and what kind of direction we want to give the staff, what that would be. And so once we have that discussion, we can direct staff to come back with clear programs to meet that. So really, it's really what we want at this point. But this is the background information.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is a pretty comprehensive report. It is a rather large report, and I'm just speaking for myself. I, for one, would like to see if we could have this maybe deferred to July's meeting. It is a lot to digest, and we've only had really a couple of days to do that. So that would be my suggestion.
Excellent, and that's certainly an option for council to consider. I would certainly agree. There is a lot of information, and this is a very comprehensive, important function that we want to get right. So I'd be certainly open to that. Any further questions? Councillor Hughes.
It's more of a, I guess, a statement. Yes, Councillor Bowman, I do have that motion here, and I do plan on asking the rest of council for a deferral to the July 10th meeting. As everybody has stated so far, there is a lot of information here to digest. It's great, very informative report. Thank you, Danielle, for doing this. This is amazing. Gives us lots of options, and as well as at the end here, we have some nice financial implications, which, well, whatever. But it's a decision that, as the mayor stated earlier, that us as a council have to decide on a level of service in which we want to provide. So, yeah, that's what my plan is, and we'll take the vote from there.
And I second that motion to defer to some time where we can put all our efforts towards really understanding and digesting this.
Okay. Are there any further questions before I ask for a motion? Seeing none, Councillor Hughes, would you like to make that motion, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-018-23 as information, and that the Council defer the consideration of this staff report C-018-23 to the July 10th, 2023 meeting of Council.
Thank you. Is there discussion on the motion? I'll just say I think the council's being very smart in this and taking this seriously. There is a lot. I thank staff immensely for the work that's gone into this and the forethought. And I think that we can all come prepared next council meeting to have a fulsome discussion. If the public is listening and they want to provide their input, everybody on the table will certainly take that as well, because we want to have that great communication with our residents. So please feel free to contact staff or any council member that you like, and then we can have a great discussion next one. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now move on to number 2, C-019-23. Mr. Grace, please.
Yes, thank you. This was a very tough report for staff to write. It's so hard to predict the future and what a piece of property in the downtown may be needed for, whether it's servicing or some kind of significant anchor business or affordable housing. Because of all those reasons, staff don't recommend selling the property. It's also paramount for staff to treat all residents and businesses the same. And when we look at all the parkland and town-owned lands that are in the downtown, if we establish a lease on one of the properties, it could open the door for a lot of other requests for leases in other areas too. So that's why in the end of the analysis, staff are recommending not leasing the land as well. In our case, because we do have the patio program, we think that's the fairest program because all businesses have access to it that front on that street, and it treats all businesses equally. So that's why staff are recommending that we point them to that program. I recognize that's a very neutral position, but it's neutral by design because that's typically what staff will do to try to treat everyone the same. So, thank you.
Danielle, would you have anything to add to that, Ms. Clerk?
No, once again, Michael has hit it out of the park with his summary, so I will just sit back, and if there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Excellent. Questions for staff on the report? Councillor Heller?
So when I read the report, I felt like, did we have a chance to hear if they were looking for either a short-term lease? Was it a monthly? Was it a yearly lease? If that was considered in advising against the lease at all?
Ms. Graves?
It certainly would be, staff would suggest if we were to look at a lease and if council was to go forward with a lease, we'd recommend a very short-term trial basis, like one sort of season or something like that. But again, we would caution that there will likely be other businesses in the downtown that last for something similar. So we should be cognizant of what the impacts that may have as well, even for short-term leases.
Clerk, please.
I'll just chime in speaking with the business owner, they also mentioned that they would be doing alterations to their building. So putting in a door to access that portion of the property adjacent to the business. So a short-term lease wouldn't probably be very beneficial to them because they would have to undergo construction on that building to make it a feasible option for them.
Okay, understood.
Mr. Graves?
So one other option council could consider is we implemented this year a fee for the patio program, and one way that council could do something for the local businesses is to waive that fee again this year, and that would be fair for all businesses that want to have the patio program. That'd be one way to show a cost-effective sort of win-win for the business. I know it points them to the patio program, but it treats everyone equally the same, and that's an option that's available.
Any further questions of staff? Councillor Hutson and then Councillor Bowman, please.
So have they actually said that they would not take a short-term lease because of having to put in a door? And they would not want this option? Is that correct?
I don't know if Danielle wants to answer that or not. I haven't had specific discussions with them myself, but I think they would entertain a short-term lease.
Okay,
as a
sorry,
trial.
I just thought I heard that they probably wouldn't like that because it was short-term.
I think that'd be their preference, would be a longer term, but
And that was my interpretation
Correct.
too. They were asking for ownership. So it seemed like they wanted a long-term settlement.
I agree with the ownership not probably being a great idea, but a lease, I mean, yes, other people could ask and other people might ask, but that's a might and a could. I mean, we never know what's going to happen, and just, it's a thought. I don't want to turn somebody away because of what might happen in the future, could happen.
Councillor Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Hutson hit on part of what I was going to ask. The second part of my question was, I know that our patio program extends to the street and allows the taking up of parking spaces. This is the only food group that's taking advantage of the actual patio area. Is it something, is it possible, and Michael or Danielle, maybe you can refresh my memory, is it something that we could shift to in the gazebo area, right in that corner, versus on the street? I know some of the concerns with the patio was it keeps getting hit by vehicles trying to park or trying to pull in to pick up or deliver. So that is one of the concerns that was brought forward for putting it on the street. And I just don't know whether it's something we could move to the gazebo area.
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. I think, you know, it's certainly, again, still not what staff are recommending, because we feel that we're opening the patio program to everyone. You know, if we lease to them in the gazebo area, if there's others that come to us for the gazebo area and try to lease in there, that will continue to shrink that area. And, you know, it starts to put infringe on what we might be able to do for events in there. But that's certainly something council could consider, is if council doesn't have to follow staff's recommendation. And so if that's something council would like to pursue, that's something they could consider in changing that program for that area.
Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson and Councillor Hallerow, please.
My question would be, and maybe our clerk might be better because she has had a conversation with the owners, is the fact that, I mean, they're going this route, and is it because they are still going to put out into the street? Are they looking to increase the area of their patio in that respect? I mean, are they looking, when I look at the map that they give, they're planning on taking out a window to put a door, and then they would have a new wooden removable railing. So my question is, are they taking out that railing so that they can then still extend their patio out and have the walkway around? Are all we doing is extending what their patio would be? Is that what they're wanting? Did they talk to you about that in any way, shape, or form, Danielle?
So to answer your question, Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson's through the mayor, my understanding is that they don't want to pursue the patio program. They would like something more permanent, more easily accessible for them through their building, as opposed to going across the sidewalk. So that they were looking at options and thought this would be a more convenient location as opposed to pursuing the sidewalk patio program. So it wasn't a both, it was, they would rather do this as an alternative.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, Councillor Hallerow, please.
In my opinion, I think I really like the recommendation that the staff is giving, based on the fact that this is public access property and we can actually always have different businesses take advantage. I do see a chance for if they just wanted to have a side door and maybe just a pathway to the side door, but taking most of that space away from the public use, I think is where staff is giving us the idea that it might just encroach. But I also see a sense where if we let this be a short-term lease, we could rotate it. It could actually be something other businesses could also lease, instead of thinking that because we get one business to do, others will start to ask. We encourage others to ask if they're also going to lease at different times of the year. And then perhaps it just becomes our source of income.
Are there any further questions? Oh, Councillor Hughes, at the end, please.
Thank you. I'm at the end of the row. I've struggled with this request and report. Government's position is to help businesses grow and profit. I understand the situation of...
Sorry, Councillor Hughes, is this a question or a comment?
It's more of a comment.
Then if we could have that during the discussion, that would
Sure.
that would be great. Are there any further questions for the report? Seeing none, Councillor Hallerow, are you prepared to make a motion?
That the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C019-23 as information, and further that council deny the request to sell a portion of the town-owned land adjacent to the gazebo and municipally known as 139 Thames Street South.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to that motion as the mover?
Well, the whole idea is I do recommend that we take staff advice on this. However, if there's still a chance that maybe they could review further with, my suggestion is if the tenants, if the owners are willing to just consider a small path where it's not really encroaching on the existing land, maybe that could be useful to them.
Councillor Hutson, would you like to finish your thought?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so as I was started saying earlier, I've been struggling with this because I know what we're here to do is to help our business sector grow here within town. This is a very interesting situation because of the proximity of this business to this area. I would like to see at least a discussion with the business owner in regards to a short-term lease of that front section, corner section. They're really not taking up much other than the front 10 feet of that paving stone area and into the bushes. So it's not like it would be a real negative effect on the property or on the, sorry, not on the property, but on the park where it would inhibit any enjoyment of that property. Again, it's a scenario of proximity. I couldn't see another restaurant setting up a patio there and then having to walk food back and forth. And then we can take it on a base by base scenario or business by business, request by request scenario to see if it'd be a good idea. So I would be in favor of at least a short-term lease to see if it works out and the reception of it all. And yeah, that's my comment.
Further discussion? My view on this is that I don't believe I agree with staff's position. I think we are the owners of this land and we need to think about the future and the consequences of selling land. That land has many uses in the future that maybe we do and we don't know. We will need affordable housing. I know in the past we've talked about selling pieces of parkland for different information. I know this is not a park, but it is treated as such and as a community space. And I know that in the past many residents have shown outright disdain for selling anything that is towards nature and uses as a public space. I am thinking about the future as well. This happens to be right next door to a business. That being said, there are many other businesses that don't have this opportunity that would have to take advantage of other situations. There are other situations that were mentioned as well. We have Dewan Park downtown as well. Are we going to get requests for that because it's convenient? I think having a fair patio program that allows everybody to be treated equally and participate. I am fully in favor, if council wants to, of dropping the fees to make sure that that is a barrier-free as possible to that program. But I'm not in favor of removing land in our downtown that could be used for something in the future that would benefit all parties, not just a particular business. So that's my comment on that. Are there any other discussion on the matter? Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
I completely agree. I would not be supportive of selling any of the land downtown. I am intrigued by a conversation around a short-term lease. We still wouldn't be obligated, more information would still give council the opportunity to at least consider that. But I would move an amendment to forego the fees for the patio program as a starting point for that discussion. Looking for a seconder.
And then the motion to have them reconsider perhaps short-term lease and without alteration to that location and see how that works maybe in the short term. But I don't support selling Alan, for sure.
So to be clear, that was not what the amendment was moved. It was moved to waive the fees for the patio program.
Oh, yeah, waiving the fees for the patio program.
So you're seconding that amendment? Okay, you'll have that for writing. Perfect, thank you. Discussion on the amendment to waive the patio fees. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens.
Okay, well, I can chime in because I was going in that direction of the patio fees. I have no problem in waiving the patio fees in that respect. I will hold the rest of the discussion until after that motion has been taken care of.
And I'm in favor of this as well. I think this is a fair thing to everybody. The residents are still coming out of COVID. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity, and the town certainly does not want to get in the way of economic development, but we need to be fair in what's doing, so that is fair to everyone, so I can support that. And is there any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? The amendment is carried. Back to the amended original motion, which is to deny the sale, but to include a waiving of the patio fees. Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens, please.
So I'll finish my thought now. Hopefully I remember it all. I'm not in favor of selling it. I'm not sure, if I was a business owner, I'm not sure that I would want a short-term lease when I was going to have to bang through a wall and then put in a door and everything else. I mean, a conversation could be had, and if it's something that's really what they want to do, then have them come back to us. But that's a lot of cost to go through for us to see whether or not that's what we would like to do. I think that we need to keep that in our own possession without a short-term lease. I think that we've gone the right way in making it part of the motion that we get rid of the fees. So I am in favor of the way that the motion reads at this point in time.
And I would agree with that. I think that's a very fair compromise to be able to reduce any barriers that can be, but still keep control and not have any undue wanted circumstances in the future come from that. There's an amended motion on the floor.
Yeah. Okay,
Does anybody need clarity on the motion?
no,
Okay.
got it.
Councillor Hughes, please.
I'd like to just chime in and say, I too am against selling the land. I agree with dropping the fees for the patios. However, the business is the best company to tell us whether they would find it viable to enter into a short-term lease by doing that construction work. In my opinion, I'll vote against the overall motion as it reads, and I'd like to explore a short-term lease of that property, that section of property, and then let the business decide.
To be fair, the ask from the Joker's Crown was to purchase a portion of the land, so that was their request at that time. And so the motion is to answer that question. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Good discussion. We will now move on to C-020-23. Mr. Grace, please.
Thank you. This report is really just to add a member to one of our committees, and would turn it over to Danielle if she has anything to add on this.
Sure, just a quick overview for council, and I apologize. I upgraded the Wi-Fi, but it doesn't seem to be working here. So just looking for council's approval to appoint an additional member to the Ingersoll Diversity and Inclusion Committee. The applicant, Kayla Hahn's application form is attached to the report for council's consideration, and staff are very supportive of the appointment to the committee. So pretty straightforward report, but if there's any questions,
Excellent. Any questions of the report? Seeing none. Councillor Hutson, you have a motion, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hutson, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report C-020-23 as information, and that Council approve Kayla Haynes' application to join the Ingersoll Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and further that Council approve bylaw 23-5266 to amend committee appointment bylaw 23-5264 to formally appoint Ms. Hand to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Halleran, please.
I just want to say this was a very strong candidate for the committee that had missed the opportunity to apply on time. And when we sat for the inaugural sitting, it was very clear that the table was quite diverse and we were missing a key member from the Asian community, who not only is from the Asian community but grew up in Ingersoll, has such, broad experience that we can even tap into. So we did definitely highly recommend she join us, and she was very open. So I'm really glad to see that we're flexible with adding people along the way, and this makes it very complete as a diverse table. And we actually welcome more people if there is an opportunity that we have more diversity coming to the table. So thank you.
Excellent. Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And now we'll move on to C-010-23. Mr. Grace, please.
Thank you. Yes, Joe Sim is joining us via Zoom in case we have any questions, but I just want to say this bandshell is truly a historical monument, and as such, staff are recommending we restore it.
Excellent. Joe, is there anything you would like to add to that? Looks like he's still connecting, so I will ask if there's any questions from council on the report. Seeing none. Joe, do you have anything you'd like to add to the report?
By his silence, I'd say no.
I would say no. Okay, we will move on.
No,
Oh, there he is.
I'm here for the next report, I think.
Okay. Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, do you feel comfortable moving the recommendation?
Certainly do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive staff report CS-010-23 as information, and given that the memorialization of the structure as a dedication to those who fought in World War I, it is recommended that the Bandshell Memorial Park be reconstructed, and that staff be requested to proceed with an RFP for this project, as well as an application for funding under the Trillium and the Community War Memorial Funding Program. And further, that if funding is not available, that the park's facility reserve be the source of the funding for this project.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Councillor Hughes, and then Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, you move the motion, and then Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. I just want to thank staff for doing an amazing report. I've been waiting for this one because I've been wanting to find out what's going on with the bandshell, and I think that we're going in the right direction if this is how council supports it, and I would hate to see us just tear it down and, be done with that history. And I think we'd all have to move out of town, to be honest. So this means a lot to a lot of different people in our community. So I hope that council will support in the reconstruction. Thank you.
And Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you. Basically echoing Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens' comments, and I'm just adding a few of my own. It's unfortunate that we've let this piece of our history deteriorate so and not keep up on the repairs or keep ahead of them. It's great that we're doing it now, and I hope that it's going to stand, and then we keep on top of the repairs, not only of this item, but this asset for the town of Ingersoll, but other assets as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I have to echo the comments that have been around the table so far as well. being historically minded, I do know that this has got a big significance to this town, and it would be really a shame to see it be torn down. So I too am in favor of rebuilding it, reconstructing it, so that people can enjoy it again.
Excellent. And I would echo all those comments. It was built as a memorial to those who fought in World War I. So really, to me, there is no choice but to maintain that in perpetuity and restore it back to its former glory. There's obviously been some repairs done over the years that have not been historically minded. And so it's weird. I was down at the museum with Scott one day, and I mentioned the band shell, and we looked up pictures. They were trying to find out what was the original roof like. Well, there was a picture from 1990, and there was a chip off the cement then. And so a lot of these issues are historical as well. I would also, I didn't notice in the report that it also said that the band shell was not designated historic, so I think that should be part of the process. The council should consider that once the repairs are done, we should designate that structure to make sure that it maintains for future generations. With that, I will, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is passed unanimously. And we will now go to item T-013-23.
I'm going to turn this one directly over to Irina.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report provides an overview of our financial position for the 12 months of 2022. So I would like to point and note that the results are preliminary and are subject to the final findings of the financial audit, year-end financial audit. So the audit, the field audit was completed 2 weeks ago. However, we're still finalizing the results. So I don't think they will change, maybe by a few $1,000s, but that's pretty much what we will see in the financial statements. So as you can see, we are projecting to end the year at with a surplus of $940, almost $48,000. So the report provides explanations by service area what drove the surplus. So it provides explanations by pretty much every department. So there is an attachment to the report with more detailed comments, and the report itself summarizes the findings. So as you can see that pretty much every department ended the year in a surplus position, with exceptions of two. It's the property taxation. We declared a $162,000 deficit, and this is mainly due to the shortfall in taxation revenues that relate to new growth during the year. So we budget for new growth a certain amount, and unfortunately we didn't achieve it due to the slower than we projected building activity or construction activity in the year before. And the other department would be Victoria Park Community Center. They've declared a deficit of $93,000. Again, the main driver would be the revenue shortfall. So it was still COVID related. So the beginning of the year, I think Q1 was very challenging. We had some facility closures, so that impacted our ability to generate revenue. And we still are coming out of the pandemic, because there are a lot of people, they feel unsafe to attend public spaces. So that's the two departments with deficits. So as you can see, the Treasury Admin reported a surplus of $646,000. So that's the main driver of the overall surplus. So this is mainly due to two factors. So one is we received a dividend. We haven't received it yet, but the ERF Corporation declared a $277,000 dividend. for 2022. So we have to record it in our financial statement. We will receive the money. And we don't budget for earth dividends just because it's so hard to predict. We don't know whether or not they're going to declare. And the second part is we saw drastic increases in our interest investment revenues, just because Bank of Canada increased rates in 2020 drastically. So we took the advantage and we were able to reap the rewards for that. So basically $646,000 is mainly due to those two factors. And we had some savings in wages and salaries because we had some gaps and retirement during the year, and it was very challenging to hire new staff, so we were able to save some money. So other departments, again, the report contains explanations, some details. So if council, I don't want to go through everything, but if council has any questions, I will be more than happy to answer them.
Questions of the report? Seeing none. Excellent. Deputy Mayor Wilson, I believe you have a motion, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received the operating budget variance report for 12 months ended December 31st, 2022 as information.
Discussion. So we don't have a surplus yet because we need to wait for the audited financial statements to come through. And then there will be some suggestions of staff. There are some items that need to be put in certain places to make sure. But council should start thinking about where we want to see the surplus put towards, whether it's asset management or different items. Would be best to proceed, but I'm sure staff will also provide us with some suggestions as well. But that will come at a later date. So thank you very much. And in one way, no thank you to the Bank of Canada, and then another way, say thank you to the Bank of Canada, and then also thank you to Earth Corporation for having a dividend, because that also helps out. With that, I will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We do have a little bit of time. We can choose to either take a break till 7 o'clock, or we can deal with correspondence. Yeah, we can try. Let's get to correspondence then. Our first item is Alexandra Hospital fundraiser event. Mr. Graves, would you like to provide an overview for that, please?
This is an event that's occurring Friday, June 23rd at the Elmhurst Inn. It's $125 a person, and there's tax receipt for $50. It's quite a fancy dinner, and it's a fundraiser for the ultrasound unit at Alexandra Hospital. I believe several of us from the town are planning to go, so we may have enough for a table, so we can talk about those items. I don't know who's coordinating the tickets. I'm looking at somebody and I'm trying to sign somebody up for it, but I know it's not me. Right? But we will coordinate tickets if everybody wants them.
So yes, this was sent to through to my office, and I wanted to make sure it was on the agenda. I'm in favor of having a table there. We do have a mandate in our strategic plan to support our hospital, and I think this is a good way to do it. A table is $1,500, but that goes towards a good cause, and we can show support for our hospital there as long as we can get enough members to attend. But I didn't know if the council open for discussion before we have a motion come forward, just to see if there is support for that. Councillor Boston's?
So I'm totally in favor of us supporting that. So, I mean, if we do the 1,500, then that goes towards the ticket allocation of the event then. And I'm assuming that that would come probably from our council budget then? Would it
Talking to
not?
the treasurer, they would defer, they would put that throughout depending on who's attending, whether it be staff or council members, and the appropriate budgets.
You're not helping. I'm trying to fill in the blanks for Councillor Halleru.
Okay, so if we, in talking to staff earlier, if we just agree that we are going to attend and how much we're going to sponsor, we can leave probably the last part out, and they can handle that allocation,
Okay,
depending on the outcome of who's attending.
so I read the
I was
motion.
trying for you,
I
Councillor
know,
Halleru.
I'm trying. Well, moved by myself, Councillor Halleru, seconded by Councillor Hutson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received correspondence from the Ingersoll Alexandra Hospital regarding their Denim and Diamonds fundraising event on Friday, June 23rd, 2023 as information, and that council agreed to sponsor the event with a donation of $1,500 for a table to be funded from the town's account. Okay.
Discussion. All I'll say is that the event is open to everyone, so if you want to support the hospital and the goal of a new ultrasound machine, make sure you get out there and buy your tickets and support the event. We are very lucky to have a great hospital here, and we need to support that ongoing. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next item is opioid crisis, safe and well, Oxford. Nope, and I'll ask Councillor Hutson if you'd like to bring forward a resolution for that, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the resolution endorsed by the Safe and Well Oxford Steering Committee regarding the opiate crisis as information. Or whereas the Council Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll recognizes the challenges of mental health, addictions, specifically opioids, and homelessness are complex issues that have a significant and detrimental impact on the residents of the County of Oxford and surrounding areas within Ontario. Whereas addressing and responding to these issues has placed extreme stress on all levels of municipal and non-municipal programs and services, including various not-for-profit organizations and provincially funded health services within the County of Oxford and surrounding areas. Whereas mental health, opiates, and homelessness trends are in recent years at an all-time high, and such prevalence is impacting the overall well-being of the people of the County of Oxford and surrounding areas, whereas Council acknowledges that approaches to addressing and responding must include diverse and inclusive approaches to these issues and should not be viewed as a single solution response. Whereas addressing and responding will require strategies and practices specific and uniquely designed for the County of Oxford and surrounding committees. Whereas Council accepts that the responsibility to address these challenges rests with community stakeholders, partners, residents, as well as federal and provincial governments and agencies, whereas challenges of mental health, addictions, and homelessness are not unique to the County of Oxford and surrounding areas within Ontario. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll provide direction to staff to send a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, the Minister of Health, the Minister of the Solicitor General, MPP Ernie Hardeman, the Office of former MP Dave McKenzie, to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Rural Ontario Municipality Association, County of Oxford, and all municipalities advocating for additional resources to combat the opioid crisis in Ontario.
Thank you very much.
Did you guys hear that?
Discussion. Councillor Hughes, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Have we not already passed a resolution regarding this situation in regards to the opioid crisis? I think we did back maybe 3 months ago.
I believe we did on homelessness, but we did not on opioid, and this is from our Safe and Wellbeing Oxford group, so I think it's important that we show support for that.
No, that's fine. I was just wanted some clarification there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Further discussion? I think that we've all seen the effects of the opioid crisis in our communities, and we certainly need more help from our senior levels of government to try to combat this. There's clearly not enough tools and resources available, so I certainly support this motion, and I certainly support the efforts of everyone trying to combat the rapid drug use and the addictive nature of the opioids pandemic. So any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I believe we will now go to homelessness, safe and well-being Oxford. Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilson. Whereas the homelessness crisis is taking a devastating toll on families and communities, undermining a healthy and prosperous Ontario. Whereas the homelessness crisis is the result of the underinvestment and poor policy choices of successive provincial governments. Whereas homelessness requires a range of housing, social service, and health solutions from government. Whereas homelessness is felt most at the level of the local government and the residents that we serve. Whereas municipalities and local social service providers are doing their part, but do not have the resources, capacity, or tools to address this complex challenge. And whereas leadership and urgent action is needed from the federal and provincial government on an emergency basis to develop, resource, and implement a comprehensive plan to prevent, reduce, and ultimately end homelessness in Ontario. Therefore, be it resolved that Council of the Corporation of Town of Ingersoll call on federal and provincial governments to urgently, 1, acknowledge that homelessness in Ontario is a social, economic, and health crisis. 2, commit to ending homelessness in Ontario. 3, work with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, and a broad range of community, health, Indigenous, and economic partners to develop, resource, and implement an action plan to achieve this goal. And further, that a copy of this motion be sent to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, the Minister of Health, the Minister of the Solicitor General, MPP Ernie Hardeman, the Office of former MP Dave McKenzie, to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, County of Oxford, and all area municipalities.
Thank you very much. And yes, this one will look very familiar. We did pass a motion, but again, this is for Safe and Wellbeing Oxford. And so it's in support of their efforts in the effort to make Oxford a safe and well-being place. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Haller-Roux, please.
When it comes to these motions, I wonder, is staff able to help with some suggestions on our community's special needs and maybe recommendation on how we can actually achieve some of these so that we're actually putting forward some direct, plan and seeking support for that plan, so that it's not just saying we want to work with the Association of Municipalities, but we actually have a plan that we put forward and specifically ask for that. Because I find that sometimes we all know municipalities have been asking for help for such a long time, but I think we are not getting very close to our solutions because we're hoping that maybe we get the recommendations from above, but I think recommendations to the specific needs of our communities need to come from us, and that as we seek that help, so that even if we don't get everything, we get something for some specific goal. And I just wonder if staff could help us with identifying some of those community, hopeful needs that we can meet with whatever resources we can get, and then we focus on reaching those goals.
Certainly, I think that will definitely happen when we have our housing strategy come forward and how we can achieve those goals at a local level, also working at the county level to make sure that those resources are available, and then really making those downfalls. Staff will definitely highlight the downfalls of where we need our assistance for sure. So I think that will 100% happen. Councillor Van Kooten, no, okay. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
I just wanted to add, we did pass a motion like this, and I wanted to acknowledge that there was an increase of funding to the county for homelessness, but it did not acknowledge some of the recommendations, for example, commit to ending homelessness in Ontario. So the advocacy is working, but I think it's important that we continue to pass things like this until we get the commitment that our communities deserve.
Excellent. And I'll just add to that as well. We did receive that extra funding, but this year our funding for housing dropped by 40%. And the reason for that, they said it was because that was tied to COVID. Unfortunately, the housing crisis didn't end after COVID. drastically increased. So there was some funding someplace, and other words, there's not. And housing is a multifaceted situation, whether it be long-term care, shelter space, entry-level homes, all the way up in every spectrum is needed. So we really need the government to take this seriously. They have taken policy steps, whether those will be successful or not, time will tell. Yeah, I don't think we can ever stop asking until the problem's solved. Councillor Van Koen-Bostens.
I want to thank the Safe and Well Committee for what they're doing. And I have a question. Do you sit on that committee, or does somebody from staff here in Ingersoll sit on that committee? Are you able to answer that?
I can answer that I do not. There is council representation on that committee from the county level, and then it's a staff committee as well. I believe it's Danielle as our liaison.
I believe the clerk from Southwest Oxford is the main coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, that's carried, and we'll have time for the last item of correspondence. Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll approve the request from Mayor Brian Petrie to attend the 2023 AMO Association of Municipalities of Ontario Conference from August 20th to 23rd, 2023 in London, Ontario.
Excellent. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Just thank you for the reminder to make
Yes,
the similar request.
Yes, I would expect we'll see some similar requests come through in July. This comes through our policy that we are all entitled to attend one conference from the list, and then if we want to attend a second one, that we have to put a request through and for council approval. So I would ask for council support in attending the AMO, where we have delegation requests in, and hopefully we can further our advocacy work for different items. Any further discussion? Councillor Hallerow.
I wonder for some of us who are not able to attend Roma, are you needing support to at least take one person? Because going for a conference and realizing you have breakout sessions where we could pull that knowledge and come back to the municipality, I wonder if some of our council members who are not able to attend Roma could at least opt to come with you.
Well, it's certainly open to any councillor member who would like to. If you have not have not attended a conference yet, there's no need to put in a request for approval. You can just sign up for it. But if you have attended, then and you'd like to attend, then absolutely put a request forward to council. And yes, it's important. It's a very important conference where we have access to ministers. Last year it was in Ottawa. This year it's in London, so it's very close. And so we'll have the opportunity to not only showcase Ingersoll's issues, but Ingersoll as well, because it is so close to a lot of our members. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We will now take a 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene for our public meetings and our delegations.
And an
Bring the meeting back to order. And just before we open the public meeting, Mr. Graves would like to have a few words, if he could.
Ron, I know I promised I wouldn't say anything, but this is Ron Versteegen's last meeting. And I think we all want to take a few moments to say thank you for all you've done for us, Ron. You've been a great historical knowledge for us, especially in Ingersoll. You've had a lot of history here and a lot of knowledge. You've also had given some vast planning knowledge, and that's something I think all staff here have sought out from time to time, and a lot of councillors too, so we really appreciate that. Some of you may not know that Ron is also a wealth of knowledge about all things Oxford County. I think the last time I was promoted, I think Ron knew before I knew. So. All kidding aside, Ron, I know I speak for all of us when I say we're truly going to miss you. We thank you for all that you've done for us. Thank you.
Ron, I certainly want to echo those sentiments, and I want to thank you. You certainly taught myself a lot. You've always been sound advice to this council chamber, and we want to thank you very much for putting up with us for all those years. I don't know how planners make it past. Ron's only 25, by the way. That's what planners look like after 5 years being planners. So I'd open the floor up to any other councillors who would like to say a few words. Councillor Van Kooten-Bosens.
I just said this to you. I've had you for 16 years, and I've now met Heather, so I told Heather she's not allowed to leave us for 16. But Ron, I've learned so much from you. It has been amazing. I wish you all the best in your retirement, and I really hope that you enjoy the next chapter. But you'll have to come back and visit, because you know that we're not going to have all that knowledge. Heather comes with a vast knowledge as well. She's coming from another community, which is how you gain your knowledge. But you have steered us in a direction that I think we should be very proud of, and I hope that you're very proud of as well, that you've had a hand in our planning here in this community, and I really thank you for being our planner for the last 16 anyway. So thank you.
Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ron, I think pretty well all that could be said has been said, but I want to personally thank you for expanding my vast knowledge and always being there whenever I've had a question. You're just a delight to talk to, and you've been a wealth of information. So thank you very much, and all the best in your retirement. Welcome aboard, Heather.
Further? With that, I will now open the public meeting. I declare the public meeting to be open. This meeting is being constituted as a public meeting held under the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing identified zoning amendment proposals. This meeting is also intended to provide the opportunity to any person in attendance to make a presentation to council. Anyone in virtual attendance who wishes to receive the decision of council on any application being considered this evening must submit a written request to Town Clerk Daniel Richard at daniel.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss any appeal under subsection 25 if an appellant has not provided counsel with oral submissions at a public meeting or a written submission before a bylaw is passed under this section. The first zone amendment application public meeting is ZN 622-05, 37 William Street. Applicant Royal King Management Corp. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest in this application being heard this evening? Seeing none, has the clerk received any additional correspondence on the application that is not noted on the agenda?
No, have not.
Excellent. I now request the planner, Ron Versteegen/Heather Sinclair, to provide an overview of the application and an explanation of the requested zoning amendment.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. My name is Heather Sinclair, and I'm a senior planner. I'm a senior planner with Oxford County, and I'll be presenting the first application on this evening's agenda, which is an application for official plan amendment and zone change. Specifically, the application for official plan amendment proposes to establish a new site-specific policy to facilitate the conversion of the former Princess Elizabeth Public School to a 20-unit apartment dwelling. And the subsequent rezone application proposes to rezone the subject lands from minor institutional zone IN1 to site special residential type 3 zone to facilitate the proposed conversion and to recognize a reduced gross floor area for the apartment dwellings from 55 square meters or 592 square feet to 48 square meters. The subject property is located on the west side of George Street, lying between Alma Street and William Street, and is approximately 2.75 acres in area. The subject lands contain the existing institutional use, the existing institutional building, which was built in approximately 1909, as well as a parking area in the front of the building, which is proposed to be expanded to the north to provide for 35 parking spaces. Based on the applicant's site sketch, a loading space is also proposed to the rear of the building, and all development is to occur within the existing structure on the property. The the subject property is regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority and contains approximately 1.4 acres of green space on the west side of the property, which is reflective of an underground watercourse, specifically an enclosed tributary of Henderson Creek. Surrounding land uses are mainly comprised of low-density residential development to the east, west, and south, as well as the Ingersoll District Collegiate Institute to the immediate north. The current minor institutional zone that applies to the subject lands permits a range of institutional uses, such as a community center, a daycare, a place of worship, and a public or private school. And the applicant is proposing to rezone this to facilitate the conversion of the said building to the apartment dwellings. And the site-specific provision that has been requested to reduce the minimum gross floor area would be applicable to approximately 4 of the proposed dwelling units, with the remainder of them complying with the required 55 square meter gross floor area. With respect to the policies that the application will be reviewed under, they are detailed in the staff report, but at a high level, the provincial policy statement does state that planning authorities shall provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options and densities to meet the projected needs of existing residential or existing and future residents in the area. And with respect to the official plan, the subject property is designated as both residential and open space. And it's the intent of the residential designation to accommodate the present and future demand for housing through the efficient use of vacant residentially designated land, as well as through the development of underutilized properties. It's further the intent of the official plan to facilitate a choice of housing types, tenures, costs, and locations that meet the changing needs for all types of households by providing a variety and mix of housing throughout the town. Further, the plan states that Town Council shall encourage the creation of housing opportunities that may result in a mix of tenure forms, such as ownership and rentals. Town Council should also encourage the development opportunities for sensitive infilling within existing built-up areas through residential intensification to make more efficient use of existing land and infrastructure. And majority of the subject lands are designated as open space, and this designation essentially recognizes the role that environmental conservation lands play in maintaining the environmental quality of the town. The open space designation generally applies to regulatory floodplain areas, as well as recreational areas and stormwater management areas. And the priorities of this designation are to minimize hazards to human health and safety, as well as minimize property damage, and provide linkages for naturalized corridors. One letter was received as a result of the public circulation, stating concerns with respect to the proposal, stating that the proposal may negatively alter the character of the area, particularly with respect to increased noise, traffic, and sightlines. And this letter has been provided on the agenda for Council's review. So overall, that is the proposal, and a subsequent report, including comments received from agency circulation and a planning recommendation, will be provided to Council at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now ask, does the applicant or the representative have any comments or anything to say concerning the application? Seeing none, I will now open this meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides an opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and council before the report and recommendation on the requested zoning amendment is brought forward at a subsequent meeting. Any person from the audience who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition to the application may do so by coming forth to the lectern, stating their name and address for the public record. Would anybody like to speak for or against this application? Please come forward. Please come forward to the lectern and state your name and address. Where, up there? Yes, please. Right up to the microphone.
My name's Jerry, 63 William Street, Ingersoll, and I'm against this idea. Just the traffic alone, because the high school there, on days that it rains or snows, it's just wall-to-wall traffic. You won't be able to get in or out, or I can't get out onto George Street because there's too much traffic. I got to go the other way, and then you're going to put an apartment right there. It's just going to cause more chaos than there is already. And furthermore, the upkeep. Whoever owns it now planted nice new hedges all along the side, and then you let them all die. They put up fences and they let them fall down. They're still falling down, just laying against everything. Furthermore, the grass is never cut. The back is just a pigsty. It looks like a derelict building. If one guy living there can't keep up with it, how's it going to keep up with 20 apartments in there? So that's all I got to say. Is that it? Do I sit down? You
No,
have
absolutely.
questions?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Would anybody else like to make comment on the application? Yep.
I'm Robert Pepper, 64 Alma Street. I purchased the house in 2010. I grew up in this town. It's my hometown. Like, I used to go to Princess Elizabeth. So my concern is the size of the apartments. Like 20 units in there. Like, what's the price range? Are they all going to be low rentals? Or like, there's just way too much thing. And being close to the high school too. You don't know what you're getting in there. There's going to be a bunch of bachelors or predators. You don't, like, I got two young girls. So that's my safety concern too. Is like, as a father, is like, I'm really concerned. I don't want John Street apartments going on there.
Is there any further comments? Yep, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Fred Burton. My wife and I bought a home on William Street January of last year. We bought that home because we knew of...
Sorry, sir, can I just get your address, please?
65 William.
65 William, thank you.
And we bought that home because we knew of the quietness in that area. A nice quiet area, you know, some older people there. And I fear that with this apartment building going in, there's going to be a difference in noise. The noise level is going to go way up just from having that many more people in that area. And I'm against it. I just, it's not why we bought that house. And if that had been an apartment building when we were looking, we wouldn't have bought there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Margaret Dykeman. I'm at 88 Alma. I was not informed of this goings on. I have a friend who owns a property on Thames Street North, and she informed me. I live at the other end of Alma, but I still believe anybody in that neighborhood should have been notified that this was going on. But I'm with the gentleman up the street. The traffic on Alma Street at any given day through the school year is unbelievable, and I just think that this is going to make it even worse, and I really don't approve of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep, please come forward.
My name is Tiffany, and I live at 60 Alma Street. And I am also concerned with the volume of traffic this is going to bring to our already high-volume area, especially with the fact that I watch people disobeying the stop signs and the one-ways as it is already with the volume that there is. And I can just imagine if we add 20 apartments in there, there's just that much more people to disobey the one-way, the stop signs. It's going to add even more traffic. And with the high school there, they are exactly right. It's insane through the year, as it is right now with the traffic down there. And if you add this in there, it's only going to bring more. And secondary, the other reason I don't agree with this is because, as it's been mentioned, the current owner is not upkeeping the building as it is. And if that's empty and he can't upkeep it, how is it going to be upkept? Sorry, he or she, or they, I should have said. How are they going to upkeep it with who knows how many people? Because 20 apartments, if there's more than one person living in there, it could bring more than just the 20 apartments, right? Like, so, yeah, I think I'm nervous, so I'm sorry.
No, please don't be nervous. That's what it's here for, is everybody's here to be supportive and just hear the comments so they can, this is the way that they can be incorporated, the concerns can be incorporated, and staff at planning and our staff, the agencies that it's circulated to, can take that all into consideration, and we can take into consideration as well. So that's what we're here for, is to listen tonight and make sure that that's on the record. So thank you very much for getting up and speaking. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to or for the application? Yep, please do.
My name is Harry Wong, and my address is 27 Interlaken, Markham. And this is my first time to hear comments from neighbors. I feel very bad and disappointed about some things I didn't do well. First, about the grass. Since I purchased the property, we made agreement with the church Ark, and they will rent that place. They will take care of the grass, everything, backyard, and the whole building. But we had a problem of a discussion about the heating bills. It's big, and they used the gym as a praying place, like church, right? So the gym is 4,000 square feet and 20 feet high. It's a big bills. They don't pay, and in the beginning, anyhow, it's our bills problem, so we have some conflict, and then the grass, the backyard, everything is a little bit mess. They said no, but the mess is the backyard also, because I thought this project will not last 4 years. Before me, the Indian people, the Universal Radik Ashram, 5 years. So these schools closed almost since 2010 till 13 years, empty, dark, like a really deserted place. And the backyard's my fault, because I bought some bricks, some material. I want to do something, but I'm not a big company, so it did really slow. And also we went to the wrong way. We didn't know that we should first change the zone. We did everything. We even sent the site plan approved by the city 2019, but we didn't know that we should change the zone first. And Victory Memorial resident, they did everything correct. They are a Canadian big company, maybe from Toronto, and they were succeed. And Premi, the Indian company, did wrong, and they led me into the wrong way also. And only Ron told us that you first change the zone, that's the first of first. So this all the, in fact, 5 years Indian company and me 4 years, totally waste, and with the money, energy, everything. And I even didn't, I should know that the grass, the backyard, and really I didn't take care of well because I have my financial problem. 4 years I pay property tax, everything, and I didn't hire people. Yeah. For the
If we could have
traffic-
quiet in the audience, please.
For the traffic, I believe I have some neighbor told me that before it was school, it's a senior school, junior school, more crowded, student, parents, and auto school bus, much worse than the situation when it turned into a residential 20 unit. But in fact, I know I will not finish a 20 unit because I have my financial problems, so we cannot really finish 20 unit, maybe only 10. But my architecture say you send application for 20, you can just renovate for 10. Because in the beginning, we just want to use that old part for 14 unit or 10 unit. Then the other part we use it at church. This is our plan before. And so I believe we will not really have 20 unit, and the traffic will not cost much worse than it was a school. But it's a pity, this building, this big yard, it's almost in the center of the Ingersoll. And to be empty like that or to destroy the building, or I don't know what, it's empty, maybe neighbors will be happy, I think. But for 10 units and only maybe 10 people, because I'm planning only for seniors. These places for the seniors, because it's a small apartment, right? Only 50 meters. And about the backyard, the high school student threw glasses and they came to the yard and the neighbors walked dogs at the backyard and we put a fence. I have the video camera, I have everything. The kids pushed that fence. And because I didn't finish the fence, I don't know by law we should do it or not. But I want to put a fence because the neighbors, kids, some kids go there, steal something, tools, and they report police, and they caught them, but I didn't, I got the name, everything, but I didn't go to their family because they are young teenagers. So I'm sorry for the neighbors. It doesn't mean that I cannot keep this yard clean and nice. So in the future, I will not. Future, if this is really like a residence garden, I will surely take care of everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are they going to be rental apartments or apartments for?
Oh, sorry, if you could just come out to the lectern and, yep, sorry, not a problem.
My question is, will the apartments that are being built, will they be rentals or will they be condos that will be bought?
Just before that's answered, can you just state your name and address,
I'm
please?
Cheryl Clark, 105 George Street.
Excellent, thank you very much. Is there someone that could answer that question?
Yeah, it's for rental. Mostly, I think about like 50 years old, over 50 years old, the citizen and the single person, maybe because it's small, only 500, 400 square feet. So cannot really have couples. I think most of single person.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the audience who would like to come and address? Yep, please come forward. Yep. It's just important that we go to the microphone. The people watching at home where it's being videotaped or streamed live won't be able to hear anyone unless it's being at a microphone, so.
Sorry, my question is, it's been stated they will be for seniors, so how would that be enforced or like is it, I don't know how to word this. Would it be legal to say only seniors can rent this building? Or like, how would it be like, if we're being told it will be a senior rental building, how would that be enforced, and will it be enforced? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not quite sure how to word it.
No, not a problem. Would staff
If
be able
it
to give an
makes sense to
overview of what the
people.
application would allow?
Through you, your worship. So the town zoning bylaw would not have the ability to enforce the occupancy of the units. So whether it's seniors or for the general public, that would be up to the owner of the property to determine who his tenants would be.
Thank you. Yeah, please come forward to the lectern, please.
Jerry, 63 William Street. If only 10 apartments are going in there, is it even, why are we wasting all this time? I mean, it's 10 apartments, you gotta change the bylaws, all that. When it started, it was 20 apartments. That's not a bad number, right? I still don't want it there. That's not a bad number, but gentleman that owns it just said he's only gonna maybe put 10 in there. So how is that gonna improve our town? More traffic, bylaw changes, all this stuff, all that paperwork you guys sent out for 10 apartments just seems like a waste. You mentioned kicking the church out. The church has been gone for months and he hasn't cut the grass at all. So the upkeep is not very important to this organization in my mind. You can drive by and see it. We're not lying. Should have took some pictures probably. You can Google Earth and see the mess probably. So it's not, I don't think it's worth it at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments?
Harry Wong, 27 Interlaken Way, Markham. About the 20 or 10, for the long term, for the future, we would like to have 20. If we can pass the application, right, approved. But we plan to make 2 phases. First, we have 10 because of financial, and maybe in the future, after 3 years, 5 years, we'll convert the gym and the computer room and the library into apartment also. But we planned already. Our architect designed everything. But this is, we know that if you, maybe we're not that financially strong, so we cannot finish 20 in advance. So we have 2 phases if this will approved by the city that we've sent building permit, by 2 building permit. First is only 10, but after maybe 3 years, everything is fine, we will do 20. This is the reason why we send 20. And with the church relationship, I know I did hurt the church, but the church hurt me also a lot, this our church. So whoever is complaining, because the church did well when they were there, it's not right. I understand we terminate the contract. It's not good with the church. We started, 2 years ago. But it's not only my fault. Thank you.
So we'll ask if there's any new comments that are just if it adds something new to the conversation. Okay, then I'll allow it.
The owner's been up twice now, and both times he's mentioned that he's in financial troubles. So if this all goes to hell, is the town responsible for any of it? If he just walks away, you guys don't get no more tax money, all that stuff, because he has mentioned twice that he's in financial trouble. So who's reliable if it just goes to hell in a handbasket? Is the town reliable for any of that?
Well, to hear tonight, we're only here to have public comments on an application. Whether that application takes place or anything happens with it is a different story.
He's mentioned twice that he's financially hurting, right?
That is
So-
irrelevant in this situation.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Fred Burton, 65 William Street. I just have one question, and that is, if this is approved based on seniors going in that building, can the owners change their mind later and say, oh, we're just going to rent to anybody? I mean, if it's approved based on a senior's.
Nothing in this application is suggesting that this would be relegated to seniors in any way, shape, or form. If the individual wanted to market it to seniors, they would be able to market that, but there's nothing that the municipality would be doing that would be controlling it only to be seniors.
Okay, so the fact that he said it would be for seniors standing here means nothing because it's not in the application.
It's not in the application. It wouldn't be specific to the zoning bylaw. That may be his plan to market it that way. And I'd like to point out when he said to the older people over 50, I thought that was really young, but that may not be what. But there would be nothing that would regulate that from the municipality's
Just
point
so
of
we
view.
all know, he's not obligated to rent to seniors. Thank you.
Perfect. Any further comments, public comments? Seeing none, members of council now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Questions from council? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I'm just looking at the report here with that drawing on it. It's all skewed on our report. So is there any plan, or what is the main plan for the open space lot in the back?
Well, I'll ask the planner to answer the question, please. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hughes. There is no future development plans for the rear portion. All development would occur within the existing building, with the exception of an expansion to the parking lot to the north of the existing parking lot out front.
Okay. Follow up?
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. So that would just be green space then? That would strictly be green space?
Yes, so that area would be restricted. It would remain in the open space designation. And with the potential to, it's regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority right now, so that would prohibit any development. But council also has the opportunity to put an open space zoning on that area as well to further restrict any future development should they choose to.
Further questions? Seeing none. If there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting of this application is concluded. The application will now be scheduled to come before council at a subsequent meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered. Thank you very much for that one. And we will now move on to, just before we do, I do want to thank everybody for coming out and sharing their thoughts on the applications. It's very important, like I stated, to make sure that your views are known and so they can be taken into consideration. So, and they certainly will be.
How do we find out a decision?
It will be, I will turn that over to our CAO.
So council will defer the decision to the next council meeting, and anyone that asks for written confirmation will get notified of the decision. So, yep, and you can come to that meeting. There won't be a public meeting at that point, but individuals can witness what council decides.
Where do we send the written thing in?
We can send it into the clerk's department or myself to request a copy of the decision. So.
And if you haven't, if you could sign the paper outside of council chambers, and that'll make sure that you're a part of the record as well. Excellent. Thank you very much. We will now go into our second zoning amendment application, public meeting, ZN-23-01-98, 98 Thames Street, applicant Ingersoll Limited. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest on this application being heard this evening? Seeing none, has the clerk received any additional correspondence on the application that is not noted on the agenda?
No, we have not.
Excellent. I now request the planner, Ron Verstegen, to provide an overview of the application and explanation of the requested zoning amendment.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Subject property subject to this zone change is shown on plate 1 of the planning report. The lands are located on the southeast corner of 10th Street North and Carnegie Street. The intention of the zone change is to rezone the area outlined in red from restricted industrial to central commercial. There's 2 other applications that are part of it that have already been considered. They are severances that have already been considered by the Land Division Committee that I'll speak to in a moment. Anyways, the intention is to ultimately merge the area outlined in red with the lands to the immediate south, and then to accommodate a future eating establishment on the subject property. Plate 2 of the report gives the council, I mean, you're probably full aware of the uses on the property. The lands to be zoned are currently vacant, save and except the food truck that is currently located on the subject lands. The subject property is currently designated a central business district within the county official plan, and as mentioned, is currently zoned restricted industrial. The newly configured property would be approximately 1,813 square meters, and that's the entirety of the property again, which would be roughly just under half an acre in size, and as mentioned, to be used for a future eating establishment. In terms of commercial, in terms of surrounding land uses, obviously we have commercial lands to the north, to the west, and to the south. We have the industrial lands, which is the mini storage on the property to be retained, which is going to remain. We also have residential to the northeast of the property. In terms of the severances, as I've mentioned, there was a couple of severances that were proposed as part of that, and that's because if council can kind of see at the current time, there's actually a property line, even though the entirety of the property is owned by Ingersoll, the northern part of this property is owned by Ingersoll, separate parcels. So the first application for severance was to sever the area outlined in red and merge it with the southern lands, and then the newly configured property, which is outlined in red, would be then merged with the commercial lands to the immediate south. And as mentioned, those severances were considered by the Land Division Committee on June 1st and approved conditional. One of the conditions was that these lands be appropriately rezoned, which is why we're here in front of council tonight. In terms of the provincial policy statement, I think the most relevant in this particular case is section 171, which talks about the viability and the vibrancy of the downtown and seeking opportunities to promote prosperity. Again, these lands have been vacant and underutilized for a number of years. So this is part of a parcel assembly that would allow these lands to be used for commercial purposes. Similarly, with respect to the official plan, as mentioned, the lands are designated as central business district, which really, as council is probably fully aware, that really talks about allowing and encouraging a full use of uses within the downtown, which does include commercial, retail, business, administrative, and institutional uses. So again, the intended purpose of this zone change would be to facilitate a future commercial use on the lands. In terms of the zoning bylaw, again, similarly, the central commercial zone that the applicant is seeking would allow for a full range of commercial uses in the downtown core, which would include an eating establishment. In terms of public comments, as the deputy clerk has indicated, no comments have been received for council's consideration. And just to further reference that, there was also no comments that were received by the Land Division Committee at the time that the matter was considered back in June, or early June. So anyways, subject to any questions at the extent of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ron. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments or anything to say concerning the application?
Hi, yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to point out that the proposed rezoning is consistent to the PPS and in conformity to the official plan and the zoning bylaw. And I'm here if there's any questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I will now open this meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and council before the report and recommendation on the requested zoning amendment is brought forward at a subsequent meeting. Any person from the audience who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition to the application may do so now by coming forward to the lectern and stating their name and address for the public record. Any person registered to comment virtually to provide comments in support or opposition of the application may do so when invited to speak by stating their name and address for the public record. And do we have anybody registered to speak virtually? No. Okay, perfect. I'll now invite anybody from the public who'd like to make comment to come forward. Thank you.
My name is Lou Skinner at 105 George Street. My interest is how tall is the proposed building going to be? Or is there a height limit?
Would staff like to entertain that question, if they can at this time?
My apologies, Your Worship. I don't know offhand what the restriction is in terms of height, but it's probably, I mean, the height provisions are common within the central commercial area, so a lot of the business up and down Thames Street. My understanding, at least from a preliminary concept that I've seen, is that it's going to be a single-story building.
All right, one of my concerns is the Ingrox buildings that are there right now are too short for the trains that go by. And when the trains blow their horn, it acts like a giant speaker that just kind of funnels the noise right into us. Coming from the opposite direction, at least when there used to be a feed plant there, but years and years ago, you never got quite that blast. There used to be a wood lot down on the end that was taken out. I don't know if anybody remembers the wood lot down there by the creek. It would be the one closest to Mutual Street. That used to absorb a lot of the noise by the trains that used to go by. So my biggest question is how is this going to impact more noise or less noise for things that go by? And if Ingrox could increase like a sound barrier on top of their existing buildings there so that the trains wouldn't be as loud, it would really be appreciated on our end of it. But my other concern is traffic. How is this going to impede the traffic that's going to be rolling around through there? Is it going to be like a drive-through type thing, or is it going to be an inside drive-in parking establishment?
I think that...
Will it be a licensed establishment?
Yeah, but staff may not be able to answer those directly tonight, but they'll take them into consideration for the report.
That would be great.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Yeah. Is there any further, anyone would like to speak for or against the application? Last call. Seeing none, I thank you again for participating. I will now open up to members of council. Now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Questions from council on the application? Councillor Halleran.
Thank you, through you, Worship. Is there a traffic study that has been done? Because this is right in the heart of downtown, just to make sure.
Answer through your worship, no, there hasn't been at this point, because really all we're doing now is just doing the parcel assembly. When the specific development application comes along, there is that ability for the municipality to ask for a traffic study. So at this point, I mean, and I probably should have mentioned that subject to the zone change being completed and the severance being completed, the next step for the developer is that the development would go through site plan control, which you're going to be dealing with your location of the building, you're going to be dealing with your access points, internal traffic movements, landscaping, and so forth. So the municipality would have that ability at that point, and that's probably the more appropriate time to be requesting traffic, but I would leave that up to the town's engineer to determine.
Excellent. Any further questions? Seeing none. If there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting for this application is concluded. The application will now be scheduled to come before council at a subsequent meeting during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered. As a reminder, if any member of the audience wishes to be notified of the decision of the Council of the Town of Ingersoll in respect of any zoning bylaw amendments, they must submit a written request to Town Clerk Danielle Richard at danielle.richard@ingersoll.ca. The clerk must provide notice of Council's decisions to all those who request a copy within 15 days after the day the bylaw is passed. Anyone may appeal the decision to the OLT, filing with the clerk within 20 days of the notice of decision. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by the acquired fee. If there are no further comments or questions, then I now declare these public meetings to be closed. Excellent. Councillor Bowman, I believe you have a resolution for the first application, please.
Worship, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the Council for the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive planners report number CP 2023-175 as information.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Councillor Hughes, you have a resolution for the second application.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Hellerue, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive planners report number CP 2023-96 as information.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Hellerue, you have a motion to take us into the Committee of Adjustment, please.
Yes, please. Through you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hellerue, seconded by Councillor Hutson, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll adjourns the June 12, 2023 regular meeting of Council at 7:51 p.m. to go into Committee of Adjustment meeting to consider the following minor variance. A-02-23-105 Bruce Street, applicant Jonathan Body.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We are now in Committee of the Adjustment. For a public meeting regarding minor variance application A-02-23 Jonathan Body, 105 Bruce Street. I now declare the Committee of Adjustment meeting to be open. The Committee of Adjustment is authorized to consider applications for minor variances from the Town of Ingersoll zoning bylaw under Section 45 of the Planning Act. This meeting is being constituted as a public meeting under Section 45(6) of the Act, for which purpose of receiving public input into the requested minor variance, which will be considered this evening by the planner and the Committee of Adjustment before a decision on the application is made at a future meeting of the committee. We ask anyone in attendance who wishes to receive the decision of the committee on the application being considered to sign the attendance record on the table outside of the chambers. If a person or if attending virtually, submit a written request to Town Clerk Danielle.Richard@ingersoll.ca. The Ontario Land Tribunal, the OLT, has the power to dismiss an appeal under subsection 1745 of the Planning Act if an applicant has not provided the Committee of Adjustment with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions before a decision has been rendered by the committee. Does any member of the Committee of Adjustment have a conflict of interest on this application being heard this evening? Seeing none, the application to be heard concerns A-02-23 Jonathan Body, 105 Bruce Street. Has the Secretary of the Committee received any additional correspondence on the application that is not noted on the agenda?
No, we have not.
Excellent, thank you. I now request Planner Ron Verstegen to provide an overview of the application and an explanation of the requested minor variance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee application before you is for a property that is located on the west side of Bruce Street, as shown on Plate 1 of the planning report. The property is just north of Carnegie Street. And in particular, what the applicant is seeking is to permit a variance that would allow for an expansion, minor expansion to an existing detached garage that is located in the front yard of the subject property for additional storage on the property. The lands are currently designated as low-density residential within the county official plan and are zoned R2 within the town's zoning bylaw. Surrounding land uses are predominantly single-detached dwellings in the immediate area, and then we also have some light industrial uses along Carnegie Street. In terms of the specific application, the applicant is seeking, as plate 3 of the report shows, the applicant is seeking to put in basically a 252 or thereabout approximate addition onto the south side of the existing 400 square foot detached garage. And as part of the application, the applicant has also indicated that the accessory structure at the back of the property, which is about 200 square feet, would be removed, subject to the approval by the committee on the minor variance. Now, as far as other properties or other uses, there is obviously the single detached dwelling on the property, and there is the existing detached structure in this location, and there also is a smaller garden shed approximately in this area right here that our understanding is to remain on the property. In terms of the official plan policies, as mentioned, the lands are designated as low-density residential, and accessory residential uses are considered to be what would be permitted within the official plan policies. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the intent here is to vary the front yard requirement. It's probably worth noting that the structure that is existing right now actually was varied. There was a variance granted by the town's Committee of Adjustment back in 2010 that would allow that structure to be located in the front yard. And it was primarily because the odd configuration of the property really wasn't conducive to allow that structure to be located in the rear yard, which kind of forced it as this being the only location. So that variance was granted in 2010. So the applicant is seeking to further vary to allow this additional structure. In terms of the zoning bylaw, again, the structures are permitted. There's an additional provision that typically comes up. I think the committee has seen this on a couple of occasions, and that deals with the maximum square footage of accessory residential buildings. And in this particular case, given the existing structure, three existing structures that I've spoken to, which would include the garden shed, we're talking about a coverage of about 9.3% of lot coverage, or about 700 square feet. So it's just under that threshold. If they were to go above and the committee were to approve it, it would basically represent about 10% of the lot coverage, pretty bang on. So it would be permitted. There wouldn't be a further variance granted if the committee chose to support that. Beyond that, Mr. Chairman, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. There was comments that I've received that are attached to the report for the committee's attention, and that's a comment from the neighbor, I believe, to the southwest, who had cited concerns with respect to the number of accessory structures on the property, had also talked about other items that are stored on the property, trailers and so forth. Talked about concerns with respect to the potential encroachment onto their property of this accessory structure. And then finally, also questions about the impact on property values. So subject to any questions of committee, that's the extent of my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Does the applicant or the representative have any comments or anything to say concerning the application? Seeing not, I will now open this meeting to comments from the public. This portion of the meeting provides the one opportunity for individuals to speak to the application and have their comments considered by the planner and Committee of Adjustment before the report and recommendation on the requested minor variance is brought forward at a subsequent meeting. Any person attending live or virtually who wishes to provide comments in support or opposition of the application may do so now. If attending in person, please approach the lectern and state your name and address for the public record. Any person from the virtual audience who has registered to provide comments in support or opposition of the application may do so by stating their name and address for the public record when invited to do so. Do we have anybody registered for virtual?
No, we don't.
Thank you very much. Would any members of the public like to come and speak? Please do so.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kim, and I reside at 125 Carnegie Street, and I am the person who sent the correspondence in. I have a lot of concerns about the property. It is the front property, and right now there is a shed 400 square foot garage or shed, whatever you want to call it. He's applying for relief to extend another 252 square feet, which is 652 square feet. My property runs this way. I am on the corner of him here. And he has a utility trailer, a camper trailer. It's gone in the wintertime, but it comes out in May, early part of May, and it's there until the fall. It's popped up. Some nights it's being camped in. There's canoes out there. There's all kinds of different things that's stored out there. I feel like it's not very good curb appeal. It represents my house because it goes along my house. And it's not very good for property value. I plan on selling my house someday. And I feel that when people drive by, that's what they see. I feel like the applicant, I don't know, and it's very awkward to talk in front of him here, but I feel like the applicant is taking everything, and correct me if I heard correct, that he wants to take the shed out of the backyard. I feel like he wants what most people keep in their backyard. He's applying so he can put it all in his front yard. That's generally what we have a backyard for. And I am concerned about my boundaries. I do, my question is does the applicant have to get a survey done before he gets a permit? I have my survey. I'm just asking if he has to get a survey. Would anyone know that?
Would staff be able to answer that question?
Mr. Round, would you know?
Does the applicant have to have a survey of the property?
You're through the chair. I don't believe he's done it now, but there's been some discussions with the chief building official that will probably be one of the requirements that he would have to undertake, yes.
Okay, then I'm happy with that. But I do have my survey, and I am going to get someone to come out and mark my land from the survey company. My survey is one that I had. And if you can see, like if you look at this picture, like the shed that's on the side, like this is mine. I'm on this longer strip here on the end. If you can see, the corner of his garage is already from anything that I have already on my land. And it's on an angle, so as he's building more into my land. Now, you know what? I can be a good neighbor and really, you know, if he's on it 4 feet and it's because my fence is inside my boundary, could I be nice about it? Sure, but my ideas, my worries is I go to sell my house. How much trouble am I going to have to sell my house when my neighbor is built on my property? So all I ask is that the council, I will do my part, what I have to do, but I ask for the council to consider that and consider the curb appeal and property value on that area of town. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for expressing your opinions on this. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to have the opportunity to comment?
Good evening. I'm John Boddy. I'm the property owner. Obviously, I would get a survey done if that was a requirement. So the shed in the backyard, my plan was to remove that, but in order to remove that, I need to have that storage space somewhere else. I don't feel like it would be unattractive in any way. Currently, there is a 10 by 10 shed there anyway that would be, it's over more than this expansion would be. And I think that probably the best spot for the shed to be relocated would probably be in the backyard with that, where that shed is being taken down. So I don't see how it would be unattractive. And then maybe some of the complaints about like the canoe and stuff could maybe be stored in a building at that point. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? Okay.
Hi, I'm Kim, and I'm 125 Carnegie Street. I'm not here, I don't want to make bad neighbors, but when I have stuff, I try to keep it in my backyard. I try to keep my property value up. My curb appeal is important. And I find that when he built the bigger shed, and he got the big one out there that's already 400 square feet, now the 200 square feet addition is 652 square feet, I didn't find more stuff going in that 400 square foot building when he put it there. So I just feel like that it's just going to keep going over and over and over and more packed and packed and packed. And I'm sorry, Jonathan, if I hurt your feelings, but, and the big role, you know what, I'll get over it. But once I figure out the land, then that's the biggest thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I know this can be very, it can be very hard to come forward, but it's important that we do have our comments brought forward to make sure that we can make the best decision possible. So I do appreciate the toughness of the situation, and I appreciate everybody coming forward with their comments. Is there any further comments?
So as you can obviously see, like the property's in irregular shape. So like the front yard is actually facing like Bruce Street. Like that's what you consider the front yard, like the front door of the house faces that street. So that's like more like this, like technically the side yard. I know like on pencil paper, it's considered the front yard, but it's really the side yard. If you were to look at the house, like driving by it, so.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none. Members of the Committee of Adjustment now have the opportunity to ask any questions about the application. However, they may not offer any comments at this time. Any questions from the committee? Member Van Kootenbosens, then Member Hallerow, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have one question. I'm hoping that Ron will be able to answer this. I'm going to the proposed addition. Not the existing garage that's there. So the proposed is there, but there's already a 10 by 10, and I think the applicant touched on this, but that one there is going to the backyard then. That's why we're not getting rid of that 10 by 10 that's there. The one that's in the backyard right now is to be tore down. I just want to make sure I'm getting this clear. So the one that's in the backyard is being tore down. The smaller garage that is already there, that is set away from the big garage, is going into the backyard. And then they're proposing the new addition.
That's my understanding. That's correct.
Thank you.
Member Hallerow, please.
So the question I have is there currently a fence separating this property? Okay.
Just to clarify, the answer was yes on that. Any further questions? Member Hughes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just quickly reading through the application. His proposed addition is to be just a lean-to kind of scenario, open-sided, or is it closed-sided?
Through the chair, I believe it's a lean-to, but it is going to be enclosed, is it not?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And I don't see it in so he'll have to maintain the proper distance from the property line, is that correct?
He would have to maintain the setback requirements, yes.
And what is that for that?
From the lot line, I believe it's 1.2 meters or 4 feet.
4 feet from the lot line, okay. That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a question. Would it be possible to have the previous minor variance decision be available upon consideration of this application?
Through the chair, yes, Mr. Chairman, I think, yeah, absolutely, we can provide that. Would you prefer that it's attached to the report or provided separately, or how do you?
I would prefer that. That way it's available for everybody's information.
Sure. Yeah, we can make those arrangements, absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? If there are no further comments or questions, then the public meeting of this application is concluded. The application will now be scheduled to come before Committee of Adjustment at a subsequent meeting, during which the planner's report and recommendation will be considered and a decision will be made. As a reminder, if any member of the audience wishes to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment, for the town of Ingersoll in respect of the minor variance, they must either sign the attendance sheet that is located in the foyer outside council chambers or submit a written request to the Secretary of Committee of Adjustment, Daniel Richard, at daniel.richard@ingersoll.ca. The Secretary must provide notice of the Committee of Adjustment's decision to all those who request a copy within 10 days after the making of the decision. Those entitled to appeal the decision to the OLT must do so by filing with the Secretary within 20 days of the notice of decision. The notice of appeal must set out the objection to the decision and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by the required fee. If there's no further comments or questions, then I call for the adjournment of this public meeting. Excellent. I will now ask for Member Hutson for a motion on the application, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Member Van Kooten-Bosens, that the Town of Ingersoll Committee of Adjustment receive Planner's Report number CP 2023-165 as information.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Member Van Kooten-Bosens, resolution to close the meeting, please.
Certainly, Chair. Moved by myself, Member Van Kooten-Bosens, seconded by Member Wilson, that this Committee of Adjustment public meeting for application A-02-23 be hereby closed.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And Member Wilson, come back to order, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Bowman, that the June 12, 2023 regular meeting of council come back to order.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. I want to compliment council and everybody on well done on switching over to the committee formula there. So well done.
I stacked a big member on there. That really helps. Thank you.
Okay. We will now continue to delegations and presentations for the 7 p.m. We'll start with Stephanie Nevins from the Ingersoll Nurse Practitioner-led clinic, please. We'll just wait for 1 second for the gallery to clear. Thank you, Ron. Happy retirement. Perfect. Whenever you're ready.
Great, thanks.
Welcome.
Good evening, Council. I'm Stephanie Nevins, the Executive Director of the Ingersoll Nurse Practitioner-led Clinic. As you may be aware, the Ministry of Health and Ontario Health has released a call for expression of interest to connect more people with primary care in communities across the province, including additional funding to create more interprofessional primary care teams to help make care more accessible for people. As part of this, the Ministry of Health and Ontario Health are moving forward with a process to expand existing teams and/or create up to 18 teams in communities with the greatest need. These multidisciplinary teams will provide direct care to vulnerable and marginalized individuals, as well as those individuals who currently have no primary care provider across the province. The leadership, staff, and the board of the Ingersoll Nurse Practitioner-led Clinic, in collaboration with the Oxford, Ontario Health Team, believe that the Ingersoll Nurse Practitioner-led Clinic is in a well-positioned model for IPC growth. The Ingersoll Nurse Practitioner-led Clinic has been providing the full continuum of care for over 10 years, and is our intent to attach an additional 800 new patients to our Ingersoll location, as well as mirror our existing location into the town of Tillsonburg and attach an additional 3,200 patients that currently do not have access to a primary care provider. A key component of the expansion proposal is the adoption of a team-based model of interprofessional primary care, and this approach will maximize efficiency, scope of practice, and collaboration within the healthcare team. According to Ontario Health and the 2021 census data, Oxford County currently has around 19,354 healthcare holders who currently do not have access to a primary care provider. 1,949 of those individuals reside here in Ingersoll. 2,960 of those individuals reside in Tillsonburg. An additional 1,674 reside in Norwich, and 1,351 reside in Southwest Oxford. This does not account for any individuals residing in any of our communities that may have a primary health care provider, but in the area that they previously resided in prior to relocating to Oxford County. Our ask to you is that as council of the town of Ingersoll and the Primary Care Recruitment and Retention Committee, you are able to support our application, along with future applications that require local municipal support and network support in the form of a letter, when it pertains to expanding access to primary care or mental health and addiction support in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the delegation? Councillor Hughes?
Hi. Have you been to the county to ask the same?
I have emailed them and I have not got a response for correspondence yet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Halleroot, please.
Hi, well done. What time frame do you have for this application?
So the application is due to be submitted to the ministry this Friday, June 16th.
Councillor Van-Koon-Bosens.
Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you. I have no problem in providing a letter. I think that is, if that's what we need to do to, I've sat on this committee for the longest time with you, and we've been pushing and pushing, trying to get healthcare, primary healthcare providers. What you're doing right now, I think, is amazing for our community, and I'm so glad to see that we can try to expand it into Tillsonburg as well. I know that your phones have been ringing off the hook, taking on 800 extra patients, and thank you for doing that. Those numbers that you gave tonight were staggering for me. 1,900 of our community is still without a primary care. So I think the least that we can do is provide a letter of support to you, and I would hope that the staff would be able to do that as quick as they need to. And I'm really sorry that the county hasn't gotten back to you, but I have a feeling our mayor might have something to say about that going forward. Have you gone as well to Tillsonburg as well and to the other communities? Because obviously Southwest Oxford is missing people having a healthcare professional, as well as Zora as well, I think it was the other one. So.
Yeah, I have reached out to the town of Tillsonburg as well as their Tillsonburg Community Healthcare Committee and have received support from the network as well as the council. Reached out as well to Southwest Oxford Mayor and have not received response yet at this time.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank Councillor Bowman, I believe you have a resolution.
Yes, I do. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the corporation, or the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll received a delegation from Stephanie Nevins, Executive Director of the Ingersoll Nurse Practitioner-led Clinic, regarding the primary care communities as information, and that Council approve providing the request letter for the support for inclusion with the Ingersoll Nurse Practitioners-led Clinic's expression of interest submission to expand service delivery. And further, that Council delegate authority to staff and the Mayor to provide letters of support to the Ingersoll Nurse Practitioners-led Clinic as requested, conditional on the request's alignment with the strategic plan and any future guidelines to support the primary care.
Discussion. The delegation did mention that our primary recruitment physician committee, is that, would it be helpful to add, amend that to have them added to the list as well? And I'm kind of asking you unofficially. Yes, please.
Yes, it would be helpful. In this specific expression of interest, the Ministry and Ontario Health has requested committee network support as well as municipality support. So when we are engaging around committee work, we want to ensure that we're being collaborative in that respect. So getting support from the committee separate from the municipality will be helpful. Thank you.
Excellent. Just going to confer with our CAO for a second. Would someone be willing to add an amendment to the current motion? Deputy Mayor Wilson, please.
Sorry, I'll move an amendment that the Primary Care Recruitment Committee is also authorized to submit a letter of support.
Excellent. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Hughes. Discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? Opposed? That is carried. Now to the amended motion. Does anybody need clarification on the amended motion? Seeing not, all those in favor of the amended motion? Opposed? That is carried. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. It does make a difference. We will now invite Frank Gross and Pamela Antonio to the lectern to give a delegation on blue box transition. Please. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for having us tonight. Pam and I are here to provide an update on the new blue box regulation that will transition to full extended producer responsibility. Thank you. Excellent, thank you. Perfect, thank you. Under the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act, the province has developed extended producer responsible models for existing recycling programs like tires, e-waste, and household hazardous waste. The Blue Box program is the last program that will be transitioning to extended producer responsibility. And the objective of EPR is to promote a circular economy where waste material is diverted from landfill and reused in product manufacturing. So by making producers responsible, it's intended to strengthen recycling markets and promote innovation in products and packaging material that can effectively be reused. Under the new Blue Box regulation, producers will be fully accountable and financially responsible for collecting and recycling of packaging, paper products, and packaging-like materials. Municipal Blue Box programs will begin transitioning to the producer-led program from July 1st, 2023 until December 31st, 2025. During the transition period, producers will be required to maintain the same level of service as the existing municipal programs. By January 1st, 2026, all municipalities are scheduled to have transitioned to the province-wide common collection system, and municipalities will no longer be responsible for managing the traditional Blue Box program. For Oxford County, this will result in approximately $2 million in annual savings. Under the current Blue Box program regulation, municipalities are responsible for providing Blue Box collection services and receive 50% funding from the producers. Blue Box collection from IC&I properties has not been eligible for this funding. However, most municipalities like Oxford has provided recycling collection services for IC&I where they're located along an existing collection route. So typically this would include BIA downtown areas, small businesses, office buildings, and farming operations. Under the Transition Blue Box program, led by the producers, it's meant to be a residential program, but will also include public spaces, schools, not-for-profit long-term care, and retirement homes. Producers will not be responsible to provide recycling collection services to other IC&I locations and are not obligated to collect from drop-off depots in municipalities that have had existing curbside collection programs. Producers will also be required to report annually and meet various collection and recycling targets, as well as provide promotion and education materials to residents. Under the transition program, the expectation is that there'll be more material that will be collected in the blue box. Producers will be responsible, as we mentioned, for all packaging material and paper that they produce, regardless of the material composition. So under the current program, it's very specific as to the material types that are acceptable in the blue box. So items typically like aluminum cans, bottles, plastic bottles, steel cans, and newspaper are mandatory, and then other items have been optional. So under the new blue box program, it's more generic and basically addresses packaging material, paper-like products. The extended producer responsibility timeline is identified as part of the regulation. So starting this July, a group of municipalities will be transitioning, and then the second group in 2024, and the third group in 2025. Oxford County's specific transition date is December 31st, 2025, so right at the end of the transition period. During the transition period, there'll be no change to the blue box collection program in Oxford County. The county will continue to manage the blue box program and will continue to receive 50% funding until the end of 2025. And will continue to report to the regulatory authority as we currently have. Under the blue box, under the new blue box regulation, a producer is defined as the brand holder with the closest connection to a product distributed in Ontario. And producer responsible organizations are also defined in the regulation, and they can represent one or more producers to achieve their regulatory requirements. Circular Materials, they're a national pro that are supporting the producers to meet their EPR regulatory obligations. And in Ontario, they've been selected as the administrator of the Common Collection System. So they're responsible for the procurement of collection contractors and receiving facilities during and after the transition period. Circular Materials, their primary focus has been establishing collection programs for those municipalities that are transitioning this year and next year. And the RFP for collection services that includes Oxford County will be issued later in Q4 of 2023. And I will pass it over to Pam now.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Sorry. I know, I did, didn't I? That's my apologies. Let's use the down arrow. No. There you go. Which page do you need to be on? There we go. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. So under the current Blue Box program, only select residential sources are eligible for Blue Box funding. Municipalities across Ontario have also been providing the Blue Box service to non-eligible sources who are located along a collection route, a residential collection route, and who could meet program requirements. This service has been provided with the understanding that any program costs associated with these non-eligible sources would not be covered by the producers. So funding for these non-eligible sources has been offset by Blue Box revenue as well as the tax levy. Under the transitioned program, non-eligible sources non-eligible sources located along a residential collection route will no longer continue to receive curbside collection as of 2026. A non-eligible source under the transition program is considered to be anything that is not a household, a not-for-profit, retirement home or long-term care facility, or a school. And some examples are in the slide, would be your BIAs, churches, hospitals, municipal buildings, campgrounds, commercial farms. So some properties located along a curbside collection route will contain both residential, so both eligible and non-eligible sources. So prime example would be your BIAs, where you have residential apartments up above a business. Only blue box material generated from the residential apartments would be eligible for collection. So in these instances, the collector must then make a judgment call based on the composition of the material in the blue box to determine whether or not that blue box was generated by a residential source or from a business source. Another example would be a convenience store, like a business located alongside residential properties. So in this instance, if I use an example of a convenience store in a residential area, if the residential properties were to put their blue box material out, they would receive collection. The convenience store put a blue box out, they would not receive collection. So the maps that you see in front of you provide you with kind of a high-level summary of what the new transition program may look like as of 2026. It's unknown exactly how many non-eligible sources participate in the county's in the Blue Box program across the county, but we do know that approximately 5% of the material that is collected between county collection, City of Woodstock collection, and the Township of Southwest Oxford collection comes from non-eligible sources, and that equates to about 450 tons of blue box material annually. So these maps, anything in blue, represents your residential area, and it's assumed that within the blue areas, that is a curbside, you'll have a curbside collection route. Anything in pink that's located in those blue areas represents a non-eligible source. And these maps are generated based on the zoning maps. So we don't know how many of those pink areas, those pink properties, actually currently participate in the curbside program, but this does give you an idea of the amount of properties that could be affected by the program once it transitions. There's been much discussion within the municipal waste management industry as to what to do, if anything at all, about these non-eligible sources who are going to find themselves without collection services when the program transitions. Some options that have been discussed is maybe municipalities could consider providing curbside services to these non-eligible sources, either at full cost to the municipality or possibly through a user pay system. We anticipate that obviously the highest level of participation would come from a system that is fully funded by the municipality. However, we assume that there would be some reasonable uptake participation level through a user pay system. In both cases, the service could be offered either through curbside collection or through a centralized drop-off depots. And one thing to take into consideration is once the residential component has been removed from the collection system, the cost to provide curbside collection will increase substantially. We certainly lose the economy of scales once the residential component has been removed. Another possible solution would be for the non-eligible sources to secure their own recycling services and operate this completely independent of the municipality. While we expect that this option is probably not going to be well received and that we're probably going to see an increase in the amount of material that's possibly going to landfill. So once the Blue Box program transitions to full producer responsibility, we expect that residents may notice some service level changes. So it is possible that your collection day could change and the frequency of collection could change. It's possible that your garbage and recycling could be collected on different days. How your material is collected, for example, right now in town of Ingersoll, you have a single stream blue box collection system, but it is possible that you may go back to a two-stream system where you put your fibers in containers in separate boxes. And customer service, any customer service related to the Blue Box program would be covered by the pros or any contractor that they've hired to provide the service. Public spaces, the producers are responsible, are required to maintain public space recycling, but they don't necessarily have to have receptacles in the same location that are currently located within the municipality. And convenience depots, we call them drop-off depots, but in the regulation, they're referred to as convenience depots. And these are depots that are operating where curbside collection occurs. And these depots, so they would be the depots located at the county's waste management facility for Blue Box collection, City of Woodstock's Enviro Depot, and the town of Tilsonburg's transfer station. Those depots would not, the producers are not required to cover the cost to fund the program to provide a collection service at those locations. The county has been in discussions with Circular Materials Ontario to see what the likelihood would be of the producers funding these convenience depots. And they have indicated a warm reception to it. They are looking for information on annual tonnages and costs, that sort of thing, to see whether or not the business case would support the funding of those convenience depots on a long-term basis. So moving forward, some of the things that we'll be looking at is developing a comprehensive communication plan with our early targeted communication to the non-eligible sources. We want to give consideration to whether or not the county should be participating or should continue to provide service to non-eligible sources. And if so, how would that program be funded? Will non-funded convenience depots continue to receive funding? Will they continue to operate? How would municipal stranded assets be utilized? And should there be municipal participation in the collection RFP process that CMO is putting out? So this is our last delegation. We've went around to and had delegations at all the area municipalities. We've been collecting the feedback and comments that they've made on this presentation, and we will be taking those comments back to County Council at the end of this month for direction as far as how they would like us to proceed, whether they'd like to see us participate in a curbside collection contract through the Circular Materials Organization, and how they'd like us to proceed possibly with non-eligible sources. So that's the end of our presentation. Frank and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Are there questions from council? Councillor Van Kooten-Bossens.
Okay, well, I'm shocked, I'll be honest. And my first question, because I don't want to shoot the messenger, who came up with the system? Was it the province? Okay, so I think we need to make sure that we're shooting the messenger, which is the province, not our two individuals in front of us, because I think that the fact that we have a lot of people who are not going to be covered by this pickup, we are going to see our landfill fill. Absolutely. What is the incentive for them to separate? What is the incentive to say, okay, this needs to be recycled and we need to do this? I see a ton of our businesses downtown. I can't imagine what the BIA is going to do with this one. We see that all the time, and now there's not going to be picked up. The municipality is not going to be picked up. We recycle at this municipality. I would hope so. I am shocked. I'm shocked by this, and we don't have a convenience depot in this municipality. Woodstock has one, but we don't have one. And maybe that's something that we need to look at as a municipality then, if that's the case. And maybe that's something that goes back through our mayor to county council, that if convenience depots are going to be a recommendation, then I think Ingersoll needs one. Because I don't want to see those people who are ineligible have to take from this community over to Woodstock to get rid of their recycling? Because again, what's the incentive to that? They're not going to. They're going to throw it into the garbage.
Sorry, just to be clear on that, they would be ineligible to use the depots as well.
Well, then I think that that's something that we have to, that county council then needs to talk about. If we're going to look at something for the ICIs, I guess that's how you pronounce it, then I think that we need to consider the IC&Is. I'm sorry. We have many people within our community that this is going to affect. Daycares, it's numerous. Anyway, that's my start, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Any further questions of the delegation? Councillor Hallerwood, please.
All right, so I'm confused. When they say these corporations need to take back and be responsible for their own recycling because they contribute to most of it, why don't they come up with their own centers where businesses, have to take them or get picked up for, I don't understand why they're isolated in the circle of activity here.
This program is a residential blue box program that, and the transition program continues to be for residential uses only. It's been municipalities across Ontario that have modified the program to provide service to businesses or non-eligible sources if along a route where a truck was driving by and just absorb the costs themselves. But under the regulation, the current regulation and the new regulation, it's only for residential, not business sources.
So you're saying that we were already just doing the extra for our own sake? It was never part of the plan in the first place?
That's correct. It was not part of the regulation. We were not regulated to provide that service.
Perfect. Are there any further questions? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just for clarification, for the ICIs and those who won't be eligible for it, like the BIA areas, when you say they're not going to collect them, we can't take them to a waste depot. Again, outside of us putting in our own depot as a municipality, what are we supposed to tell them? Gee, put a garbage bag tag on it?
Yeah, thank you through the mayor. I think we will be looking at some potential options to continue that service, but it won't be part of the regulation and a requirement for the producers to fund that portion.
Yeah, so what I would recommend is, what's the deadline for getting comments into yourselves for, that would be included in the report to county?
Thank you. Through the mayor, our report is scheduled to go to county council June 28th, but we don't believe we'll have a final solution as far as IC&I go. We'll need more time to consider what the options could be there. So.
Thank you. We do have some time as well. We are at the end of the transition period. So I've encouraged the BIA to look at this. I've encouraged different organizations in the town to provide comments, really think how it would affect the community and make sure that's communicated to the county so county council can consider that when they're making their decision. And I think you saw up there that you're going to see, the county will see a $2 million savings. I would highly put against putting that to use yet, because I think we're going to have to use that towards making some of these shortfalls come to fruition. But I want to thank the delegation very much. It's not an easy one to give because it's not an easy message. But I do appreciate the opportunity to provide comments and receive the information. Any other further questions? Yes.
If we wanted to complain to the province, can we do that?
Yes.
Perfect. I think that, no, again, because I don't want to shoot the messengers. I mean, obviously, the province put this whole plan in place, and it wasn't well thought out. It was just put together, and they didn't think about it. But it's municipalities, once again, who are having to take on all of the...
Councillor Hughes, would you like to, first of all, I want to thank the delegation, and thank you very much. Second, I'll ask for Councillor Hughes to move a motion, please.
Absolutely. Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Helleroo, that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ingersoll receive the delegation from Frank Gross and Pamela Antonio from Oxford County Waste Management, providing an update on the Blue Box Transition Program as information.
Thank you. This is my second time seeing this presentation. I saw it at county as well. I've had a little bit more time to digest this information. It doesn't get any better. The province is basically taken. They've already responsible for 50% of the user of 50% of the funding of our programs. And now they've made it 100%, but they've also given them responsibility for administering it. And I think that's where this program really fails, is that they're asking corporations to administer a program, and now it's a business decision instead of a customer service level. And they've taken that choice away from county council and even at the municipal levels, the lower municipal levels as well, to set that level of service. And I think that that's wrong. And I think I have no problem with having the users pay for the system, but really we should be setting the standard in how it's administered. I think the BIAs are the one that's really going to have a hard time with this. But I think the county will come with a solution. I think we have to. We know from the dump fight that residential diversion rates are higher than ICI. They're not perfect. There's room to be work done there, but there really is a higher rate than ICI. And ICI, it creates, their solution is going to be, it's a business decision for them. They're going to be, what is the cheapest solution for me to deal with this situation? Unfortunately, that means our landfill could be filling up. We're trying to make it last longer. We're trying to make it last to 2100. This does not go as far as that. We don't know what happens. Having an inconvenient system where it could be multiple trucks, that doesn't fight climate change through carbon reduction. It just creates more havoc. It creates more confusion for people. This is not the way forward. I think we all know that. And so I have no problem with advocating that to the province. I think they need to hear it. One of the other things is that I was really hoping that as other municipalities went through this transition before us, we would learn something. But right now, we're not going to learn anything because those producers are just going to have to fund the current programs. So we're all going to be, am I correct in that? I am correct in that we are going to all hit this at the same time in a wall of nobody knowing what's going on. In 2026, January 1st, 2026, we go to 100% user pay system, and we won't know how it's going to affect things throughout province-wide. And our citizens do not care who picks up and pays for it. We are going to get the calls, because I can guarantee you nobody's going to get through that line on January 1st, because there's going to be a lot of people calling. So the more advocacy work we can do, the better. And the more we can think of how this will affect, so we can put those programs into place if we need to mitigate that, the better we off. Because as much as I want to point at the province and the users groups for this and say, this is going to be horrible, I don't want it to be horrible for the citizens of Ingersoll or Oxford County. Because if we can do something to mitigate that, I think we should. So the more we can think about it, provide those comments to Oxford County, I think would be the best for that. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It's carried. Thank you very much. Should we do closed session or bylaw? Okay. We will now go into committee of the whole for the bylaws. Councillor Bowman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Hughes, that the mover have leave to introduce and go into committee of the whole on the following bylaws. 1, amend bylaw 23-5264, appoint/remove members of committees. 2, appoint Deputy Division Register Gavin Bennett, bylaw 23-5267. 3, graphic image delivery bylaw, bylaw 23-5268. And 4, confirmation bylaw, June the 12th, 2023, bylaw 23-5269. Committee, Council and Committee of the Whole, Mayor Petrie and the Chair. On motion, the bylaws are accepted as circulated. This constitutes the first and second reading of the bylaws.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We're now in Committee of the Whole. Would anybody discuss any of the bylaws? Seeing none, I will ask for Councillor Hutson to rise as of the Committee of the Whole, please.
Moved by myself, Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Helleroo, that the committee do now rise out of the Committee of the Whole.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Helleroo, third reading, please.
Yes, sir. Through you, Mayor.
Through you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Helleroo, seconded by Councillor Hutson, that the bylaws 23-5266 to 23-5269 be now read a third time, passed, signed, and sealed, and that this constitutes the third reading of the bylaws.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Hutson, can you please take us into closed session, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself, Councillor Hutson, seconded by Councillor Van Kooten-Bosson. Council do now go into closed meeting at 8:50 p.m. Pursuant to Section 2392 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, to discuss the following matters: closed session minutes of May the 8th, 2023, Section 2392D, labor relations or employee negotiations, QP, union negotiations, Section 2392B, personal matters, an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, CAO 360 review.
Thank you. Discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will now go to our other chambers, please.